we went to Little Italy, we went to Chinatown.
Welcome to this morning's workshop on this rainy day and a rainy week. And we will have an update for everyone at the end of the workshop on Tropical Storm Debbie. But we're happy to have you here with us this morning. And workshop is not a formal council meeting. This is a time for council to get updates from staff, reports, and presentations. So we have a very short agenda today, so let's get started so we can get everyone out of here before the weather gets too bad. And we're going to have Michelle Schumpert walk us through the new ATAX grant application. And council, this is our opportunity. If we asked for changes on this grant application, this is our opportunity. If we are not happy with the changes or want other things included, we need to let Michelle know, please. And Mary Henry is here. Mary, if you have anything that you want to include that you don't see here, we would love to have your input as well, please.
So, good morning. As the mayor said, that we were requested to make some changes to the accommodations tax application, not only by council, but by the ATAX committee chair. They've been doing this for a while, as have you, and have come to recognize a number of items that come to the forefront of the conversation when we actually begin to speak about the award process. So I'm just going to really quickly go over the few changes. They're few, but I think they're fairly significant in the new application. Most of the changes really are on the first page, because what we want to use the first page for as best we can is a summary to answer the bulk of your high-level questions. So one of the things that we added was the agency form and the incorporation date. That way you can know if it's a for-profit or a 501c3 and how long they've been in business. Another item we added, we've always had the amount requested in the application, but we've also added just a quick reference here for the percentage of the budget that they are requesting to receive from the city. Are they looking to get 100% of their budget from the city or just 20%? We've also kept in the previous awards from the city for the last 2 years, but we added right below that a request for the entity to let us know how many years they've been getting accommodations tax funding. Is this a 2-year? Is this a 5-year? Is it a 20-year agency? Other sources of funds requested from the city of Myrtle Beach. From time to time, we have agencies that will request both outside agency funding and accommodations tax funding. The distinguishment between the two are the outside agencies typically perform a service or a duty that we would otherwise perform as a city. And the accommodations tax is actually something to increase the cultural opportunities in the city or broaden our tourism base and bring more tourists, put more heads in beds. On occasion, the two overlap and groups will ask for both. We've got a description of the project. Previously, we had a program objective, but we wanted to expand on that a little bit to give you a little bit more detail about what the agency actually plans to do. So we've got the description of the project, but we also ask for the event or project dates, the type of event or project it is, the locations of where they'll be held on those dates, and the ticket prices that they are charging. Now, the application always requested the number of tourists anticipated to be in attendance, but it was really further in the application, and I wanted that right here on the front for you. So we've added the estimated number of tourists in attendance as well as the estimated number of in-city room nights generated here on this front page. We've always included the budget that they are requesting to help fund, and that remained here on the same. I think I just cleaned it up, reformatted a little bit. I think it'll be a little easier to read. The next few pages basically are the same. The information is something that we do refer to and use every year. But on page 2, section 4, we added a section that states, if the event or program included in the grant application was held in the prior year, please provide the following economic impact information from the previous event. Whereas we ask folks to estimate what the benefit, the economic benefit of the current event will be, we want them to tell us what the actual economic benefit was of the prior event held. Some measure of success. Give council and the accommodations tax committee some measure to be able to help make the determination on what type of grant to give in the current year. On page 3, one of the next items that we added is 6. If the event is a fundraiser or uses proceeds to provide charitable donations or scholarships, please describe the planned use of the funds and the anticipated recipients. I think that's something that's come up in council questions before. One thing we are stressing in this application, and there throughout you'll see a few areas that are underlined. Applications with missing information, applications that are not complete and do not provide everything that we are requesting for may not be considered for funding. Now, we hope to get them in time, that Courtney is going to look at the applications, and if she sees that something is missing, she'll reach out to the organization and give them an opportunity to get that information in. It'll be a short window, maybe 3 days, maybe a week, just depends on the timing. But they will be allowed an opportunity to get the information in the event that they did not complete it. I will say this, as long as they made an honest effort to actually get it in. You can't give us a half-filled application with nothing. But if they just left off one thing or they're still waiting on one piece of information, I think we can work with that. In the other application, there were 2 different sections where a pro forma was asked for, and then another section where an expense breakdown was asked for. And I think it got confusing because often when we get these in, people would have different numbers in every section because I don't think they really understood what we're asking for. So on the first page, I've got what are you asking for this year? What percentages of your budget is it? I also added in there how much you requested from another organization. Not just how much you got. I want to know how much they've requested from Horry County for ATAX. Maybe from Surfside from ATAX, Conway from ATAX. Just depends on where they're having events. How many other agencies have you asked for? So I did include that. On Exhibit A, page 4, what we're asking for is a pro forma that provides actuals for the past 2 years of what the organization received and spent, an estimate of what they are budgeting for in the current year of the request, and then a forecast for what they expect to ask for and need in the next year. So it gives you a little bit more information about the future plans, as well as what they want for this year, and how they performed over the last 2 years. I also asked that they give a reasonable amount of detail when it comes to what they're asking for. Accommodations tax grants are available for marketing and promotion of events. And typically that means for events outside of the city. Sometimes that's looked at as 50 miles away, sometimes 35 miles away. But the intent is to bring visitors to the city and put heads in beds as one goal. The other goal is to support the culture and the arts in the city. So we want to know that the expenditures they're making fall into those categories and actually serve the purpose that the grant is intended or that the funds are intended to serve. Not really a change, but I do like to highlight the fact that in these grant agreements, we do have the option to audit within 48 hours, or, without 48 hours of notice. We also have the option to periodically and randomly ask for receipts to back up prior year expenditures prior to distributing any current year funding award. And last year we did that with several smaller agencies. If an agency is not big enough to get an audit. then what we like to do is say, okay, you didn't get an audit, so send me documentation to prove what you spent last year and how you spent it so that we make sure it was spent correctly. And within the grant agreement, we also have the authority to claw back those funds if they were not spent appropriately. I think those are the key highlights, and I would like for you guys to offer suggestions, questions, comments.
Council?
One thing that I thought just kind of raised a little question for me is the documentation, receipts. Okay, if the organization has an audit, if they're going to have an audit, they're going to produce all of that. Okay, so if an organization doesn't have an audit, but then your comment was that some may be requested to have
That's right.
documentation or receipts. Only if y'all have there, if you're going to require one in every, I think we should require every agency. If you're going to require one agency, whoever it may be, to produce documentation such as receipts and everything, you know, if you're going to do that, I'm okay with it. But then you should require all of them to do that, not just one or two.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. It's really not, it's not so much a heavy lift for us as it is the organization. So we have no problem doing that if council so desires.
What kind of financial burden is this going to put on a small 501c3 to have to do an annual audit?
An annual audit itself, if you actually have to hire someone to do that, it can be very costly. Now, you will find some firms that are willing to do it sort of at a discount rate if it's a small firm or a small audit for a good cause type company.
I just want us to be, aware of that we may be asking a small organization that needs this funding to survive to spend a lot of money to do an audit.
Now, the audit is not required. So if the agency is small and does not have it does not, have the funds or really are required to do an audit, they can also provide their financial statements and their 990 tax filing. So there are options.
Okay.
I just don't want it to look like maybe that we may have singled out one funding versus another one. And to me, if you're going to do that, I'm not saying everybody has to have an audit.
Okay, I misunderstood you. I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
I misunderstood you. I'm sorry.
But I'm saying if you are going to require whatever organization is request for money, if you're going to require them to produce documentation and receipts, you'll do that. And I think that opens the door where there could be some issue there if you didn't require that for everybody.
Well, I think I'll expand a little bit on how we've done this in the past. So some of the audits that we have done have been random, which means a person with an audit may be requested to bring receipts in. And your small entity may be requested to bring receipts in.
But there again, I go back to it. I'm not saying the audit, but I'm talking about even a small organization. Again, if you require one to produce receipts, I think that could be, as a former attorney would say here, that might not pass the smell test, so to speak.
Yeah, again, I do not mind doing it. It is no burden, but I would like to expand on that statement. So in all honesty, in reality, allowing an individual corporation to provide receipts as opposed to an audit is an accommodation to them that lessens their burden and makes it easier on them. So that's one of the reasons that's offered.
I understand.
But do it either way. Matters not to us. Whatever is going to make this council comfortable in providing for these grants is our aim.
But we ask different recipients different questions all the time. When we have questions about how they're using the funding or what they're doing, we ask them different questions. We ask them to provide different information that is not on the application. So I don't see why asking for specific receipts is any different than that. Because it's only if we have a question that we need that stuff, right?
Michelle, there was this year in the state budget, there was a nonprofit organization that had requested funding, and they did not get it. The governor vetoed it because their 501c3 was not in good standing with the state. Do we check and make sure that every 501c3 that applies for ATAX grant funding is in good standing?
Courtney, absolutely will be doing that.
As she smiles.
Michelle, I had a couple of things. One, and I'm sure that is something we would do, but I think we need to be thoughtful about the explanation of ATAX and our purpose with the ATAX funds. That's not on the application. I'm guessing there's a really good cover letter that goes on top of this application that's part of it that is very specific in regards to our intent of the ATAX funds, legally what they are able to be used for, et cetera, so that it is clear and, someone's not going to all this trouble to not be able to get the funding because they're asking for the wrong thing. Because I know we've talked about as a council when we approved the last ATAX funding is kind of our goal of helping an organization get started, and then hoping that over years that then they're able to run without the ATAX funding so that we can help other organizations, groups get started as well. Not sure if that's where the council still stands, but I know that was part of the discussion. But either way, I think we need a really good comprehensive cover letter that goes with the application. And I think the receipt part was something that I felt really strongly about when we talked about this earlier. And I think having receipts it closes the loop. The only thing that concerns me is if you apply and you decide not to apply, you get $20,000, you decide not to apply again, there's no closure of the grant, right? And so I'm wondering if we should separate have the grant cycle where you actually, which most grants, you have to close the grant cycle, so you wouldn't wait to show your receipts until you apply again. That the receipt part should be part of the grant cycle. And so it should be that after 2 months or 3 months after the event, that the organization needs to close out the grant cycle by providing their receipts. That's my other thought. And that's normal. I've never seen a grant that you didn't do that, because that provides accountability whether a group's coming back or not. Those were my thoughts.
Good thoughts. And I will say that with the cover letter, I absolutely agree, and we will be doing that. One of the other things we'll also do this year is we're going to let Meredith know when the process opens, and we're going to ask her to put something together that is very informative about the accommodations, tax grants, what they can be used for, and sort of lay that out so that it's put out there, publicly on our page in a much more informative way than it has been in the past. And with regard to the information being received at the close of the grant, it's a great idea. I like that as well. You are absolutely right, because in every other grant that we do, there's always that accounting, and typically it's throughout the receipt process, but at least by the end. So
And to give it a few months after the event date, just in order to allow them to get all of their bills.
yeah, and that would solve the problem, the issue and the additional time that it would take throughout a current process to collect it.
And on the budget, Michelle, are we asking them I hate to just say the county, but the number of years they've been receiving funds from the county, and then how much for this? I think you said 2 years for us.
For us, yeah,
Are we asking them the same thing? I'd just like to know that.
absolutely.
And any other organization they get funds from.
Are you looking for governmental agencies?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Anything else?
I just want to make a comment. I agree with everything Ms. Connor has said and Mr. Chestnut here. I think it's real important to add those in there. And I want to give y'all kudos because y'all did a great job revamping this application and stuff, and it's been needed a few years now.
Yes.
So we've suggested it or talked about it before, and it just didn't ever make it that way. So thank you for all your hard work that you did. I guess, Ms. Henry, did you have anything to add? Any thoughts?
We've spent several phone conversations working on this, Michelle, put it together, so over the course of the past 2 or 3 months. I think it got fleshed out a lot. I just wanted a lot of the information on the front page so that we have it, and I'd like to at least a compilation of checks and expenditures. The only question I would have is some of these organizations are bigger and they're getting money for one particular event. How do they break out their whole budget from specific events that they do? That would be one of my considerations.
I would say this, if we inform them ahead of time that you are going to have to document this, like any other grant, if they're larger organizations, they are probably getting grants. So if they know that they need an advance to segregate this out, it should be no problem.
Well, it ought to be their line item
Yeah.
for that particular event, but I don't know that they would need for us to hire audit for the whole organization. Say the YMCA and everything they do when they're getting money for the tournaments. That would be my consideration because you're looking at 500 pages versus maybe 15 pages.
I think the good part about getting an audit from an organization, such as YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, any of the others, is that I think we need to see, the council needs to see the totality of the picture of the organization, the health of that organization, and their actually need for the funding when you're comparing it to much smaller organizations that may have a much greater need. Plus, you want to be able to see that this organization you're giving money to is a viable corporation or business that you don't have any going concerns about it for their viability in the future.
Thank y'all for everything you've done.
I will say that most of these things have come from questions from council and then from Mary Henry. I just sort of tried to put it together in one document that would, try to answer all of your questions.
Good job.
Thank you.
And I know it's a much longer form, but I think it needs to be a long form. This shouldn't just be a very easy process to go through. We need this information to make our decisions. So I agree with everyone up here. I think this is a great form application, and thank you all for the changes.
We will
Thank you,
incorporate-
Courtney.
Yes. We will incorporate your changes and then plan to have these out either the last week in August, first week in September to begin the next process. And thank you. Thank you for taking the time to give direction so that we can make this informative for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right, we have
Really was a good job.
a presentation from Cameron Armstrong on the economic development portion of the comprehensive plan. Cameron says this is an 11.5-minute presentation.
I told him to slow down, to use Michelle's southern drawl. We're training him in how to speak southern. Real quick, while Cam is passing those out, as you will recall, when the comprehensive plan was adopted in 2021, it was a 10-year update to the plan as required by the state. Council decided at that time that we did not want to cram 10 years worth of an update into every update that we did, that instead we would take an approach of focusing on one element at a time over the 10-year period, so that the comprehensive plan would always be front of mind and we would always be working on it. So we have been working on the economic development element, and that's what Cameron's going to present to you today. He's been working with the Planning Commission on this. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Stalvey in the audience, and I'm sure the rest of the commissioners are watching live at home. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cameron so he can explain to you what all they've been working on.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for having me today.
Good morning.
I am here, as Kelly said, to present the 2024 update to the comprehensive plan. Just a brief overview this morning on the 3 areas I'd like to touch on. First is the comprehensive plan document itself and what we've changed within that. Next is the process that we utilize to bring about these changes. And finally is that economic development element itself, the lion's share of the work that we've been doing for the better part of a year. So to start with the comprehensive plan, we touched on 3 separate sections. First is the introduction. We changed within that an implementation strategy, adding strategic planning as an option for implementation. And we also added a section entitled Our Plan Forward, which talks to what Kelly just mentioned, how we're changing our methodology in comp planning, updating an element per year. We also touched on the population element. The population element, we changed the raw census data within that just to align with what we found for economic development. That is actually the next section that we're going to work on updating to bring back next year before you all. And then finally, that economic development element, which was a complete refocus and rewrite of that. So the process that we utilized to get here was 4 steps. It started with a work group, then it went to staff brainstorming, to public engagement, and then finally design and refinement of the document itself. The work group was comprised of City of Myrtle Beach staff members and Planning Commission members, and went through exercises like a SWOT exercise and a plus delta activity to set the vision and focus of where economic development in our community truly lies. After getting that focus and vision, a small team of City of Myrtle Beach staff members met together over 8 sessions to brainstorm policy areas that the city could capitalize on to effectuate positive change in economic development. Bringing all of that together, we brought it to the public and did 3 in-person public engagement sessions at Mary C. Canty, Pepper Gettings, and General Robert H. Reed, and additionally had a Google form that was open for a month and a half, so all members of our community could comment as they were able to. And wrangling all of that together, we went through many, many design workshop sessions with Planning Commission and staff, going over every word that was in this document and scrutinizing it all. So, and that's the document that you see before you today. I did want to highlight there were 4 consistent themes that we heard from our public engagement sessions and our work group. Those 4 themes were that the City of Myrtle Beach is currently undergoing economic change, and that we as a municipality need to adapt and grow with that change in order to prosper. The second theme that we heard was that workforce development is critical as our population continues to increase. We need to give people the ability and skills that they need to facilitate this growing community. Third, we heard that our home as an economic engine is vital, and the intersection between people's personal lives, their civic lives, and their economic lives all matter to where they choose to reside. And finally, as we all know, tourism is the economic backbone of our community, and we must think strategically and critically about how we want to grow that so that we remain on the forefront of the tourism industry. So to try to summarize that in one brief statement, which is a challenge in and of itself, we landed on the guiding principle reading, Myrtle Beach will advance as a dynamic city offering unparalleled opportunities, backed by an experienced and skilled workforce, providing residents with an attainable, distinct, secure, and prosperous community to reside in. To that end, we selected 4 key areas that followed closely with the themes that we found as the 4 pillars of economic development moving forward. Those 4 pillars are economic diversification, workforce development, neighborhoods and commercial district bonding, and modernizing our tourism product. On this slide, you'll see underneath each of those pillars are success metrics that we can measure, generally in a strategic plan. With economic diversification, it could be things like increased market competitiveness, gaining more businesses than we lose. With workforce development, it's things like improved wages and reducing our unemployment rate. With neighborhoods and commercial districts, things such as multimodal path frequency of use, not just for recreation, but for commuting to your job. And finally, under modernizing our tourism, it's things like increasing our occupancy rates and our rates of revenue for our hoteliers and industry. If you'll please flip to page ED14 in the document I've handed you, or follow along on your screen. We introduced a page, it's a guide page for the policies that we've chosen. I wanted to highlight this just because it does look substantially different than the remaining pages within the comprehensive plan. You'll notice in the top left, the blue box is the pillar and policy description itself, and that highlights the actual policy that we as a city will hold moving forward. Below that, you'll see a section entitled National Trends and Data. This is information we found during our research for this process that highlights why we chose the policy as it is. It's not meant to compare Myrtle Beach to another municipality, but rather highlight why the policy that has been chosen is significant for our community. And finally, on the right-hand side of the page in that gray box are opportunities that our community can capitalize on, small programs or initiatives or other communities that we could emulate to help economic development within our own borders. And using that, I'm just briefly going to touch on all of the policies that we've chosen. The next 4 slides will contain the 16 policies that we've chosen. I'll stop at the end of each of the slides here as they do correspond with each of the pillars to open it up for questions on any of the policies. So to start with economic diversification, the first policy is to bolster local, regional, and global innovation and entrepreneurism that will advance and secure the future of our community through investment in the Myrtle Beach Living Lab, smart cities technology, and modernized and resilient infrastructure. 2, to strengthen the local economy through effective business regulation, processes, and communication, ensuring public understands their positive impacts. 3, to utilize incentives at the local, state, and federal level to attract new businesses, including startups, underrepresented business owners, and the expansion of existing businesses in target economic sectors. And finally, to drive economic growth through innovative and emerging markets that emphasize the creation, testing, and deployment of appropriate alternative energy and green infrastructure. Within workforce development, we've selected to encourage workforce programs and pipelines through partnerships with educational institutions that are focused on specific skills and trades. 2, to promote participation in apprenticeships, vocational training, and adult education throughout our community to strengthen our local workforce with the skills necessary for high-tech and in-demand professions. 3, to develop strong and accessible mentorship and entrepreneurship programs with businesses and education institutions for aspiring individuals to drive socioeconomic mobility within our community. And finally, to expand affordable access to high-speed internet, making online education more attainable while increasing digital literacy to address the digital divide. For neighborhoods and commercial districts, prioritize multimodal transportation opportunities and paths linking our neighborhoods to cultural, educational, and commercial districts. To employ placemaking campaigns to attract target market sectors into commercial districts that blend with our neighborhoods. 3, to prioritize targeted, low-cost revitalization initiatives in workforce neighborhoods to enhance their appeal to working families. And 4, to utilize creative zoning opportunities to encourage an appropriate blend of residential and commercial spaces to maximize our limited land mass. And finally, within modernizing tourism, to facilitate Myrtle Beach's year-round tourism industry by targeting new attractions based on evolving consumer preferences, while being mindful of our natural, cultural, and historical spaces. 2, to continue to improve the national hospitality image of Myrtle Beach by continuing to attract top-quality accommodations and experiences. 3, to promote Myrtle Beach as a premier special events destination, catering to both visitors and residents. And finally, to cultivate high standards in the hospitality industry for cleanliness, safety, and service quality to provide world-class vacation for every visitor. And as this is passed through Planning Commission through a resolution, there are only really 2 steps remaining. First would be a first ordinance reading with City Council and a holding of a public hearing at City Council, followed then by an ordinance second reading, a vote, and hopeful adoption. And I am here to answer any questions that you all may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Council? Questions, comments?
Seems like a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. One thing I did notice in the very beginning of your presentation, with some of the comments, the comments actually reflect a lot of the priorities that we're already focusing on with revitalization, with cultural arts and things like that. So this brings it all home that what we're doing, the things that we are doing, the investments that we're making are in the right areas.
I would agree with that. I think consistently we heard from the public and from our own Planning Commission members, there was strong alignment and recognition of what we have been doing and what has been working, and to continue doing that.
Are there no questions?
Did y'all get a chance to look at page ED 33?
Well, let me get there, Greg.
Well, I will sign it for you later if you like it.
I threw that in there just for the
That has
yes
got
vote.
Commissioner Stalvey and Kelly talking business and me staring off into the void.
Well, I will have all 3 of you sign that page, okay? And I want to thank the Planning Commission, and thank you for being here, Mr. Stalvey. We realize how much work went into this, and to staff as well, Kelly, to you and to Cameron. This is not an easy thing to do. It's not just a document. This is hours and hours and hours of hard work. So we appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I'm very excited to see when I was reviewing for the meeting and I saw the slide in regards to kind of this layout, and I was so disappointed because I wanted all of that extra information. So I appreciate the fact that you did have that and you provided that to us.
I had originally submitted that document to
Fantastic.
Brian Tucker, and he said, please tone this down, don't present the whole document. So we had to cut some things here.
Yeah, and I can see why, but it's really, really well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do not have any executive session items today. Thank you, Will. However, everyone is aware that this week we do have a tropical storm situation, and even though we don't expect heavy winds, this is going to be a heavy rain event for multiple days. And there was a question yesterday that I got, Tommy, I see you here today, about did the city of Myrtle Beach declare a state of emergency? No, we did not, but the governor did, and that is because this is going to be a major water event with heavy flooding. So Josh Bruger is going to give us an update on Tropical Storm Debbie and what we can expect throughout the week.
Yep, I'll be quick, but just to bring everybody up to speed. First, I want to acknowledge the staff. They've worked really hard the last couple of days to bring everything together, and it's nice to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody, and they've already done it. So they've done a lot of great work behind the scenes. I'm going to start with just a couple of slides from the National Weather Service from their 7:45 update this morning. And I just pulled out a couple of things I think that are important to you all. But the threat levels, kind of what we're looking at for the next couple of days, as the mayor just mentioned, this is primarily a rain event. And so the big thing for us is going to be, how does the rain fall? Do we get some breaks in there to allow it to run off a little bit? And so that obviously is our biggest concern right now. And the window is really opening right now for the rain. And so That's where we're at right now. Currently, we're under a tropical storm warning right now. I know there's been some discussions about wind, where we're at, and the mayor just alluded to that. As of right now, these are the anticipated wind gusts, upper 30s, so we should be okay here. Obviously, if any of this shifts, north, south, anything that can change any of that, but as of 7:45 this morning, that's where we're at. The anticipated peak winds. The anticipated rain totals, we're looking at 10 to 15 inches for Myrtle Beach over the next, between now and Friday. So again, it's going to depend on how it falls, but I know the city, from what I hear at least, drains pretty well. And so we should be able to handle that other than the, I say, usual low areas. Storm surge being on the coast, another concern. 3 to 4 feet, looking at here in the Myrtle Beach area. And then I'm not going to read the whole slides to you, but just the preparations that all the different departments have undertaken. They've been working on it. Really, it started on Sunday in earnest to get us ready. Public Works has brought down the levels on some of the ponds. They have made sure we don't have any blockage in a lot of the drainage. Everything's fueled up, checked, ready to go. Generators, chainsaws, small equipment, vehicles, everything like that's been checked, ready to go. Police department, you might have seen some of the message boards that are out, particularly in the low-lying areas where water will stand. They are out there at least until the wind. If the wind gets to a certain point, they'll pull them in, but if it doesn't, then they'll stay out. Social media, high water vehicles are prepped and staged. The CSOs are ready for traffic direction, moving equipment. They've checked the beach, and then we use the police department and the fire department, since they're here 24/7, to keep an eye on the city facilities throughout the event. PRST, we're pulling trash cans off the beach actually this morning. Just a little bit ago, they've put sandbags around the entrances to our recreation centers and the train depot. They've pulled flags down. Vehicles are fueled. Secured any loose equipment. The fire department, they positioned chainsaws at the fire stations. They were fueling and loading UTVs onto trailers. They have swift water rescues ready to respond. They have a boat team at Station 3 that's beginning tonight through Thursday, should they be needed. And they also do a lot of our building checks. And then behind the scenes finances ready to go. P cards. I know IT's been working to make sure that our folks can work remotely if that is needed. I was talking to Michelle this morning. Have no fear, all the city employees would still get paid if there was some catastrophic event. The bank's ready to go to make sure all of our employees are paid. So really just want to bring you all up to speed that there's a lot of work that's been going on behind the scenes at the city, and we're hoping for the best, but ready for the worst. So, any questions? No? Questions?
Be careful.
Everybody? Yep.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Josh, this might be your first, but it's not the city's first.
It's not really my first either.
Your first year.
Houston's had a hard time of it.
Coming from Houston, it's same different.
Right.
Or, same. That's what Bob was talking about. 15 inches of rain, and oh my gosh! And we had Hurricane Harvey in Houston. We had 50 inches, and that was a
I
lot.
got stuck there during Harvey.
It was a lot. So, thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
And I just want to remind the community mainly, even though this may not impact Myrtle Beach as much as it does other areas, let's be mindful that our neighbors do flood. And if they need help and we have the equipment to help them, we're going to be ready to reach out and help. But if you have neighbors or friends who are elderly or who are unable to help secure their homes, just let's be good neighbors and help each other out through this. And that is all we have for today. I'll ask council if you have anything else you want to discuss during workshop, and if not, we will adjourn. All right, thank you. Everybody be safe.